So since we are all beginners at this, it will be, excuse me, since we are all beginners at this, so it's going to be centered at the beginner stage. Okay, so I've told our resource person, and he said he will maintain that beginner friendly talk with us. So he'll be joining us soon. I believe I just could communicate it to him now, and he said he will join us in a minute. So again, I want to welcome everybody to the meet, and I want to say I'm very happy to have you here. So as usual, we usually love to give out shout out to those that came very early, and today is Justice. So Mr. Justice, I welcome you to the meet. Please unmute your mic and say hi to the team.
Hi everyone.
Hi Justice. Okay. I'm very happy today. Very happy today because today has been a day I've been looking up to, to actually hear how data structures and algorithm have been really, really applied. Because sometimes when I learn about them, I'm like, where do I start to apply this? I mean, just write the code. So I want to really, really know where it is being applied. That's why I'm very happy. So I welcome everybody again to the meet. So while waiting for him, I would love to also hear from us how we have been doing. So at this point, I'm just going to ask some random persons. Manuel Vex. Okay, so Molly Adiam, how has the program been on your own side? Are you there? Okay. Molly, are you there? Okay. Molly is unavailable. Okay, so I would not like to take our time because our resource person is already here. Okay, I told you I'm very, very happy because he's here tonight. I know we are going to learn a lot from him. So he's someone I followed for a while, and he has proven to be someone with a lot of knowledge. I remember when I had issues on Django last week, and I reached out to him. No, he actually reached out to me, and from there, when I asked him questions, he will help me out on things like that. So I was very, very happy when he accepted and said he's going to be available for us today. So without much ado, everybody, I wanted to meet Mr. Praise Dike. He's a backend developer at Tele1. Okay, he's someone who has been in the industry, and of course, he knows what to tell us today. So I want to please everybody with a clapping ovation. Let me see your emojis. I want to welcome Mr. Praise Dike. So please, I hand over the mic to you.
All right. Thank you, David, for this opportunity. It's an opportunity to get to speak with people. Yeah, and for a start, I'd just like to introduce myself briefly. Yeah, so I'm Praise Dike, and I'm, like you said, a backend developer. I work at Tele1. I started working with them sometime last year. That was around May last year. And yeah, that was my first job. So I actually started learning code in 2020, but I was not really committed to 2021, 2022. Yeah. So without okay, I'll just give a brief intro as well. So topic is fundamentals of software engineering, right? And talking about data structures and algorithms as well. So I'd like to break down the things I'm saying as simple as possible, because I've noticed that, okay, for most of us tech people, especially when we've not gone so far, beginners like I myself, we just tend to miss basic terms. Sometimes we don't really understand basic things. So it's really important to break things down to the basic. So this conversation will be, or rather this talk will be beginner friendly. Yeah, and there'll be a lot of room to ask questions. There'll be a lot of time to ask questions. So just start. Okay, as a software dev, it's getting into programming. It can really be overwhelming, right? I remember the first time I was introduced to data structures. Then I didn't know anything about that until a friend of mine shared a link to a job test. Right, so we tried taking the test together, and it was hosted on a site called HackerRank, and I'm sure most of us here will be familiar. But if you're not familiar with it, it's cool. You can go check it out after now, hackerrank.com. So it was hosted on HackerRank, and I really flopped because I've been coding before then, but the questions just seemed very unfamiliar. So that was my journey into data structures and algorithms. Felt, there's something I didn't know. There's need to know it, especially if I was pushing to be eligible for a job. If there was something that, in a way, requirement, then I had to push for it. So, like I said earlier, for beginners, there are some basic things you must know. So before diving into data structures, you need to be familiar with programming concepts, right? So it's not much about it's not first about your stack. Getting familiar with all the cool stack out there, Node.js, Express, and the rest. It's first about understanding the basics. So you could just pick a language, which I believe most of us here would have, and learn the basic programming concepts with it. So you need to be familiar with concepts like variables, loops, arrays, and functions. Those are the basic things: variables, loops, arrays, functions. So why this is important? Because in the long run, it's basically what you'll be using. They are the things you'll be using. Also, you need to be familiar with OOP, object-oriented programming, where you have your classes and your attributes and the rest. So that would help as well. You need to be familiar with OOP. So you could master a language, say Java, Python, JavaScript, right, and learn these basics. So that's one way you could you'd really go far in your journey in data structures, right? So considering software engineering as a whole, the fundamentals, there are a lot of foundations, right? There are a lot of fundamental stuff that you need to be exposed to. So it's beyond just you coding at the back of your coding on your IDE or on your terminal. There's really a lot of things you should be familiar with. So even if it means taking courses, reading books, there are things you should be familiar with, and not just you should not just have head knowledge on these things, but there should be things that you've practiced by working on actual projects or real world projects. So talking of things like software design, right? Coding is just part of it. Is a part of it. Testing, deployment. So if you've got into build projects, you'd be familiar with these things. Yeah. But one aspect that is well needed, especially for software engineers, is software design, because you need to like know how your software will serve what your software would handle, the capacity, and you need to have it all figured out rather than just okay, you have this project idea, or somebody comes to you with this project idea, and then you just jump into your idea and start coding. So you need to do your design. Yeah. So like I said earlier, coding is part of it. Then testing is one part that I think most of us get to. We don't really pay much attention to it, but in the actual sense, it's really needed. Yeah, you need to learn testing, unit tests. You need to learn how to. So the thing is ability to write clean code. So I get to see this I get a lot of on Twitter Spaces and several posts where people are like, "What would you choose between a functional code and a well-written code?" So I'm not here to give an answer on that. However, it's very important to have clean code to write clean code rather. Because when you're writing, even if it's your personal project, right, you never know who would want to collaborate on it, or you never know who would be hiring, and maybe this person has a tech background. So if the person has a tech background and there's your code is not really understandable, just have bad practices, then that's a minus. So some basic practices, of course, having to comment your code, yeah, and your comments should not be much focused on what you're trying to do, but on why you're having to do it. Let's say you're adding let's say you have a okay, I use Django majorly, so I'd like to give an example. So let's say you're writing Views code for your registration, and there is a functionality you add. So rather than just telling us, okay, this is for email registration, you can just add something to tell us why you have to put it there. So that just helps to make the code. It helps the readability and helps people understand. Yeah, and there's like this guy I met on on Twitter, and was working on a project that's really cool. So I thought to collaborate with him, and it was pretty cool because that as well. The documentation, the code, it's easy to understand. So documentation as well. It's one thing to just have your it's one thing to have your project, and it's one patience to know what the project is about. So you need them for a start. At least you need a README file. So your README file should have a link. Should have a description of what your project is about, how people would install and stuff like that. So that also helps. So these are just some basic practices that many times we overlook, but in the long run they are costly when we miss them. So there are things that we need to pay attention to. So and these things I just mentioned, testing, writing clean code, software design. Is there anything I'm missing? I think. Oh yeah, deployment. If you've gotten to build an app and maybe you've had to present it or you've had to put it up for show, means you've had experience with deployment, and it's very important because we know surely there are free platforms that could help you with deployment, so that's not so much of an issue. If you want them maybe unlimited or some extra features, you could go ahead to pay. Yeah, but if you don't have the money is not a challenge. Money is not a challenge. So there are platforms you can deploy your projects on. And why is it important? It's still to put yourself out. It's to put out the work. Let's say you made a pet project and it's not really needed in the real world. Let's say you made an e-commerce app for, let's say, clothes, and nobody's really using it to sell it. Leave it there. You could, if it's, let's say, front-end based work, you could deploy on Vercel. There are several other platforms you can deploy on. Yeah, and you'd also put the link on your GitHub or wherever, but it's needed that you put it on your GitHub so that anybody that is going through that would see that, oh, okay, this person actually has something going, because not everybody has that time to have to install locally and get it running. So these are just things that are basic and would really help to put you out. So I'd like to know if you're following so far. If you're following, can you just drop emojis in the comment section and I'll continue. I can see the comments coming. I'm glad you're following, and I hope I'm really making sense. So going on, so we've talked about some basic practices, and we've talked about data structures and algorithms. So while we've given a foundation on what you need to dive into data structures and algorithms, it's also important to note this. One mistake that people make is spending too much time on HackerRank and lead code. Because trust me, it's not a competition. It's not a competition. It can be really tempting. Where okay, you're doing let's say you're doing 30 days of code. I did that sometime last year on HackerRank. You complete your challenges every day, and that's very good because that consistency will help you to make you really understand what's happening and give you hands-on experience. But let's say, okay, you now go beyond that. You're spending 2-3 hours on HackerRank or lead code every day. I honestly don't see any reason for that. Now, if you need that time or as much time to understand concepts, that's fine. But in the long run, I don't know. It might be subject to review, but I honestly have not seen anybody that got a job from his lead code or hacker profile. But what you're judged on is your ability to solve problems, so to solve real world problems. So while you're while you're practicing, your mentality should not be that this is where you should not be trapped, right? You should not be trapped to what you're doing. You should not be trapped to trying to boost your profile, trying to do a lot of practice, but to apply the things you know in problem solving, because that's what you're paid for in the end, and that's what would help you. That's what would make impact. Yeah. So I can talk about this expressly because I fell for the trap. I kept practicing for longer than I should until I did realize that I could actually, or I should be using this time to build projects. So that's more of where your emphasis should be. So it's one mistake that people make. Yeah, and another mistake would be I'm guilty for this one. With the introduction of more advanced AI technologies that could solve algorithm problems, it's tempting to want to use them. The issue is that when you start outsourcing the work that your brain is supposed to do, it would just create that relaxation in your brain. It's just like, let's say you're an engineering student and you use calculator fine, but it's still needed that you get to use your brain for some calculations, so because that would keep you sharp, that would keep your brain sharp. So that's what happens here. So before before ever thinking of wanting to use AI to help out, you should go the hard way. You should pay the price to really understand the basic concepts. And trust me, it can be frustrating in the sense that you're looking at your computer screen, you're not understanding what you're seeing, you've tried everything. But just spend time on it. Even if it takes a day, 2 days, 3 days, then okay, maybe you can source for solutions and you find out. But don't just source for solutions. Master the solutions. Try to write them on your own. I'm not saying like you can copy the solutions and submit, fine, but still have to go back to it and try to do it from the start. Try to do it from scratch. Don't just assume that you have the head knowledge. So what have I just said? While there are ways you could get solutions to problems, it's best to first get used to using your brain, make your brain sweat. Then when you're used to it, then it's okay to source for solutions. But occasionally you still have to make your brain work. All right. So my point is gotten. I hope you guys are with me. If you're with me, I'd like to see your emojis and at fire down. Okay. So to avoid these mistakes, I talked about where I talked about neglecting documentation, testing, and things like that. It's important to focus on writing good, clean, and maintainable code. So this is where your emphasis should be on. So I know it's okay to not have it all figured out when you're starting a project. That's fine. Especially if it's maybe if you're not so experienced, that's fine. You get experience along the way. But while you are while you're working on the project, you should your focus should be on the things I said earlier: writing good, clean, and maintainable code. So use best practices. So there are proper practices like naming. Okay, I'll talk about that briefly now. Naming conventions. So let's say you're making a blog app, and you're writing you're writing a model for let's say for the users. So it wouldn't make sense if you call that user, if you name the user, let's somebody reading, the person will be like, what the hell is T? It's better if you just write user, right? Because that would make it easier for people to understand what you just wrote. So you should seek to make your code as easy to understand as possible. And you need to still emphasize that you should make your code as easy to read as possible. Use naming conventions that and for each for different languages. For example, JavaScript, there's a way functions and the rest things are named. So we call camel casing. The first letter is small caps, then somewhere down the middle there's capitalization, right? Then for Python, and the thing is, different languages have the way they name their objects, so it's best to know how it's done, and that will make you seem more professional. That would make your work more professional. And so, like I said earlier, it's okay to not have it all figured out when you start your project. But then, if it's something you feel people would get to use, if it's something that it's beyond a pet project, something that will be used in the real world, you should be more worried about, or you should be more concerned about optimizing for performance. Yeah. So you'd have to consider scalability. You'd have to consider how well the website or the web app or the software, whatever, would serve and would be able to handle the amount of users at less cost. So these are the things you should be concerned about, because in the end you're paid for solving problems. You're paid for solving problems, not for just some random thing, but it's particularly for solving problems, and that should be what your that should be what your focus should be on, solving problems and doing it efficiently. So I'd be concluding a bit, and I'd give room for questions. So in a recap so far, what I've spoken on, starting from data structures and algorithms, understanding the fundamentals of software engineering. We talk about writing good code and avoiding some common mistakes. Yeah. So aside this now, aside these things that I've stated so far, one thing that would help you in your software engineering journey, whether you're employed or not, whether you have an internship or not, whether you have a job or not, whether you have whatever, no matter the status you're in, one thing that will help you is networking, because there are many reasons why it would help you. So you have to be genuinely interested in the struggles of other people, because that's the only way it can work. Networking is not just something you do and you're just cold about it. It's not just something. You're not looking at yourself. You're not looking at your benefits, but you're looking at what you can give to this community, or you can give to the community of programmers. And know that surely everyone has an idea. Everyone has a strength. Everyone has something they can contribute, and everyone has a weakness as well. Although for some of us, we'll be able to work on those weaknesses. But however, it's collaborating to work on projects is always a big plus. Yeah. Okay. Let's say, for example, you are back-end inclined, you are database, and the other guy is database inclined. The other person is front-end inclined. The other person is good with DevOps. You could combine to work something, and it would be better than what you would do on your own, because the idea that other people bring would it would just be a different perspective from the way you would see things, and to make the work faster. But the downside to that is that you okay, maybe not a downside, but it's like a caution, is that you need to find people that are actually interested in what you're doing or in what you plan to do. So it should not be that okay, it's like you're trying to force somebody to I hope you guys can hear me. My network just went out. I hope I'm back now. So okay, I was talking about collaboration. And, all right, okay, you can hear me. I'm glad. So what you would work on, and that's why I'm glad that there are devs like this, software engineers like this, because you could, if it's sort of a community, then you can go on to start a community project where everyone is interested in working, and it would help your portfolio, because I'm sure everyone here has an idea, no matter how dumb it might seem. Ideas would seem dumb until there's structure to them, until there's execution, until until we get to verify them, they would seem dumb. So if what makes ideas grow is when they are spoken about, is when an idea meets an other idea. Right. So that's the importance of networking. That's the importance of a community. That's the importance of having other people with you. So if you have a group of committed people and you can be one yourself, hungry to make impact, hungry to solve world problems, because the truth is your goal, right, should be so much on, okay, I want to get a high paid job. No, your goal should be, because how it ends most times is frustration, or how it ends most times is not, you don't really get to where you want to go. So you should get to dream beyond the money. You should get to dream beyond immediate gratification, but you get to dream on the impact you make, something you look back years later and you'll be proud of. Yeah, you could see an example of people like, the guy that started Duolingo. I can't remember his name, but he spoke with his friend, and he wanted to solve a problem, and it was not his. He didn't even think that it would be monetized, because that was not even his plan. But he just wanted to solve a problem because he had issues with language, because he's not from an English speaking country, but he stayed in USA, I think, yeah, or struggled with the language. So he thought, okay, how can I build an app that could, okay, let's say, teach people like me? And that was it. So collaborated with some other guys, got funding, and that's how we have what we have today, Duolingo. So your focus should not be highly on okay, I want a job. If you focus on that, that's fine as well. But it should be more on impact. You should make yourself hireable. You should make yourself the kind of person that no company will want to deny. It was you and your friends, or you and some fellow devs, that did something as big as OP, and you are looking for a job that let's say they collaborate with other people and bring those ideas to execution. I myself have some ideas. I do have an idea particularly. Interestingly, it's my network. I don't know. Can you hear me now? A call came in. Sorry. Okay, all right. So I was talking about ideas and collaboration. So, like I said earlier, what makes an idea thrive is when it meets an other idea, and when the idea is talked about. So, I also said something else. Let me try and remember. Okay, I said I do have ideas myself, right? And I'll need to collaborate with other people to bring it to life, to bring it to reality. So there's open source, and something you should give your attention to while you're trying to make an impact. So it's okay if you don't really know what to build, or you feel what you build will take much time, or you don't feel that you could always find an open source project to contribute to, and that would be a big plus. Yeah. So supposed to talk about something. Okay. So there's this thing that there's a requirement as a software engineer to have I know if for most of us that have CVs, it would likely be in our CVs develop that you say, okay, I'm a problem solver, or I'm a critical thinker. Yeah, because that's a requirement. Yeah, but beyond just having it on your CV, it should be something that you can really talk about. It should be something that it should be something that you've personalized. It should be something that you've gotten to work on. So for that's where that's what data structures and solving algorithm problems would help you build, because it's like you're attacking problems, you're attacking challenges, and it would bring out that critical thinking ability in you. It would help you build your ability to think and interpret problems. So when you're working on real world projects, right, you can easily use this skill that you've learned, so problem solving, critical thinking, and analysis, right? So another thing that's needed is so I've talked about communities. It's also when one importance of being good in data structures and algorithms, or one application, is that you can participate in coding challenges. There are a lot of them that are paid, and they usually come up. Maybe you could have one that comes up yearly. You could have some that come up monthly. There are different code challenges out there. You can find that. I know for one, you can find them out on HackerRank. Yeah, I've been mentioning HackerRank from the beginning. You could check that out. You learn. You can start your algorithm journey. Could start from if you're a JavaScript person, you could do 30 days of JavaScript. If you're a Python person, 30 days of Python, and so on. The goal is to be consistent, not to do a marathon, but to be consistent even when you feel frustrated. Yeah, and that would help you build a lot. So when you feel you're good enough, can participate in coaching challenges. And another thing that will help you, so this is not exactly related to algorithms and data structures, but one thing that will help you is seeking mentorship and guidance from other experienced software developers and engineers. So of course you can find them out on LinkedIn, you can find them on Twitter. So you see somebody that you really like his posts, they are insightful. It's actually not best to ask the person, can he be my mentor? Because the thing about mentors is that most of them are busy. So everybody's busy, right? And the truth about humans is that humans are selfish. They want to see what is in it for them when there's an offer. So okay, say I've been following your post for a while, and I built this web application that would help your posting, or just something like that, or yes, like a summary of your posts, or tips, just some feedback, or anything that would add value, and surely that would get the person's interest. So that's one way to get a mentor. But aside that, you can get one-off mentorship and guidance from other people. Then another thing is I trust we are familiar with Git's version control. Yeah, something that you need, but just in case you don't know about it, your project should be on your GitHub, Bitbucket, platforms like that, version control that would help, that would make it possible for other people to work with you on your projects, and help you document your code, keep your code, and store your code. Yeah. So while it's good to master a stack and to be good at it, when you feel you're comfortable with something, let's say Python, and when we say you're comfortable with it is when you've mastered the basics of programming that we talked about earlier. You've mastered those basics, then you can go ahead to use different. You go ahead to build projects, and that's when you're really sure. If at least a project, a solid project, that's when you're sure you've mastered it. Then you can move ahead to learn different stack, different tools, different frameworks to stay up to date. Why you need to, of course, you need to use you don't have to be limited to a particular stack, except you want to major on it. But if you're having to do projects by yourself, you surely have to learn other things by the way. Yeah. So, and you have to stay up to date with. So this is I'm saying are just things that will help you in your journey and to date with the technologies, technological and at this point, if you're not using AI, you're actually missing out, because it will keep advancing. And trust me, AI is not here to replace developers and engineers, in case that's what you're thinking. Because if that was the case, my God, other jobs would long be gone. But they're actually no replacement, but they are aids. So find ways to make AI work for you. But before that, you should have mastered the basics of what you're doing. So you know what's so you know how to query, and you know how to correct if there are any errors. Then lastly, and very importantly, it's important to be patient and persistent in your learning journey. So for some it might take 2 years, for some 3 months, for some 2 years, 3 years. It doesn't really matter. It's just be persistent. That's what I would say. Just be persistent and keep pushing. You got this. Yeah, so before I'd give room for questions now. For that, I'd like to hand over to David. I'm grateful once again for this opportunity to speak to awesome people like this. So, David, over to you now.
Okay, sir. I appreciate it, beloved. Thank you very much. So I'm very, very happy that you had to join us and you've given us some insight on things we may not have known. I'm sitting down in the background and I've been taking down some things, and I believe every other person is doing so. But then I've been receiving questions so I was just waiting for you to give the room for the questions so that we could all ask our questions. Although some persons have sent in theirs and say I should help them to ask. So from time to time, I will be asking you the questions, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, you can go over the questions.
Okay. The first question I have here is someone is asking when do we get to use data structures? That she has been learning it, and she's not really understanding the concept. Like, when is she supposed to use it? When is she supposed to apply it?
All right. Okay, I'm more back end inclined, and I'd speak from that perspective. So I can't really say much for the front end guys. But yeah, when you're building actual projects, right? When you're building projects, you're for let's say you want to implement okay, sure. Dua is an example of Twitter. Okay, let's say you want to make an algorithm, right? Excuse me. You want to make an algorithm for, let's say, recommended posts, or rather recommended tweets. A place like that, that's where data structures can come in that you'd have to analyze what you have to do. You have to analyze the problem that's in front of you and break it down, and then the logic of you actually adding that feature, the logic of you getting to solve that problem, that's where you get to use data structures. So it's where you have to add features, where you have to add logic. That's where you need it. So if you feel you're not understanding, it's actually not true. Does that feeling though? It's actually not true, because although I don't know how long you spent on it, but if you spent a while on it, I'd like you to just go on to build a project, to work on a project, and add functions, add features to that project. Then you would see that, oh, these things you've been practicing, you can actually use them. So while your mind is telling you, oh, I don't understand this thing, it's actually expanding to understand it. So you don't need to actually feel like you understand, and you just keep looking at it. Then use it to solve problems, use it to work on projects, and that's where you get to apply it. I hope I got to answer the question well.
Okay, I believe I've answered the question. So someone else have a question. Joshua, please ask a question. Joshua, please ask your question. You might need to unmute your mic.
Sorry, I don't really have question. It is my hand. I just pressed that. Thank you.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Study teacher, please ask your question.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Dixon.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Go on.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to, that question that was asked, that first question concerning a data structure. Like our speaker rightly said, when you're writing codes, when you start writing codes, or when you start practicing, you see the need for data structure. Just like, for instance, you write a program, or you just design a little app. Then when you do it for the first time, you now think of, how do I make this app faster, use lesser memory, and make it efficient? So you find out that you can come up with more than 2 or 3 different ways to actually solve this problem. Then now, that is where you now start using your data. That's where you start making use of data structure. Like, what structure do I use for maybe, for instance, if it's an application that has to do with databases or using memory. So now you now think of what structure will I use that will make this app run faster, and maybe you write your programs where you initially wrote about 20 lines, you're thinking of how to make it 10 lines and unambiguous. So you see, when you start thinking of all these things, then you're already implementing data structure into your code. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That also added to it, and it's clear enough now. Okay, sir. Please, I will. Someone inbox me another question here. He said you should give a real life example of where data structure is really used. That he's still unclear to him how this is being used in a real life application.
An example. It's actually used in every project. Well, for that person out there, if you're familiar with data structures, Twitter, it's open source. I'd like you to check Twitter's algorithm, and it's well documented. So you could check out for a code base that's written in a language that you're familiar with, and you can go through it, even if you don't understand everything. What do we call it? The comments would help you, and yeah, you'd get that's like an example. So I would love for you to go through the code base. So it's something practical. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, that's clear enough too. Okay, so someone is asking if you can recommend any resources or material or tool that we could use to help us learn more about how to apply data structures and algorithms.
Sorry, my network went out. Can you ask the question?
Okay, I said someone asked if you could, if you have any resource or material you could recommend to us to help us learn more about how to apply data structures and algorithms.
Okay, I'll drop that at the end of the meeting.
Okay, great. So I have another question. Someone said, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to understand a particular data structure and algorithm or algorithm?
I'm so sorry, my network is acting up again. Can you go over the question again?
Okay. Someone asked, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to understand a particular data structure or algorithm?
Okay. Okay, like I said earlier, the truth is you actually have to kill yourself on it. Yeah, kill yourself, but if it gets to that point where it's seeming like there's no hope, it's not wrong to find a solution. There are solutions online. You can actually find a solution to it. You find what other people have done. But like I said earlier, after finding the solution, you've looked at the solution, you've used the solution. Start without looking at the solution. Start writing. And it's not like you're cramming anything. Yeah. So when you get to go through the solution, what you should be looking at is the logic. Is okay. How did this person get to solve this problem? What was the person looking at that I didn't notice? So that's what you should be looking at, not the exact solution, but how to come up with a solution. So it's okay to find people to look at other people's solutions to that problem. If you think like it's really hard, yeah, get to master it that way. That would help.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So someone else was asking, and he said, even with everything that you've just answered now, that it is still unclear to him that if you could talk about a project you've handled and a kind of data structure, a particular kind of data structure you applied in any part of it, so that you could really, really picture how it is being applied.
Sorry, I didn't really get the question. My network is acting up. Really sorry.
Okay, please, I'm sorry about that too. I'll ask again. I said, someone asked, he said, with all the questions that have been asked and you've answered them, that it is still unclear to him, that if you could talk about a past project that you've handled and where you applied a particular kind of data structure in that project, that so it could help him picture it more and see how it is being used, that it is still sounding abstract. Our resource person has left. His network has been bad from the beginning of the session. I don't know if he's going to join us again, but I believe we've all learned a thing or two from the meet. Actually, it was supposed to last for an hour, and it is an hour already. So I will, of course, allow us to go and rest soon. So let's just give him. Okay, he's back already. Hello, sir.
Please, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Are you there?
Okay.
Okay, I can't hear you anymore.
My network, I'm struggling to keep up. It's network is really bad. Yeah. Can you go over the question again, please? I hope I get to hear it this time.
Okay, I'll go by it again. So someone was saying that it is really, really unclear to him, even with all the questions that you've answered now, that if you could talk about a particular project you handled and then tell us where you applied a particular kind of data structure, that it would help him picture it more. He has left the meet again. His network has been really, really bad. So I guess we just have to let him be, and maybe when else we have something like this to discuss on data structures, then we could still ask our questions. Or when else we have another meet that's related to data structures, we could ask our question. Although I will drop a link to his profile, so we could always reach out to him and ask him our questions if we have any personal question to ask. Okay, he is a professional at this field. He has joined us already. Okay, so I was wondering, since your network is really, really bad, should we, I'm going to drop a link to your profile. So for some of us who still have our questions, who are not able to ask it here, we could reach out and ask you in the DM. Hello, sir. Are you there? Let me check. Are you there, sir? Okay, I think the network is really, really bad. So I guess that's what is going to happen. So I'm going to drop a link to his profile. And for those of us who cannot ask our questions, you can reach out to him either on Twitter or on LinkedIn and ask your question. And okay, he just dropped a message and said I can go on. Okay, I don't know what to go on with, whether to drop his profile or the questions, but I think I'll go with dropping the profile link so that we could all connect with him and ask him our questions personally. So I want to thank our guest speaker for being here today. At least I reached out to him on a short notice, and he was able to come here and deliver on the topic we had, which was the pillars of software engineering, a deep dive into data structures and algorithm. So it seems as though the network is not only him, it's almost for everybody. So I want to thank our resource person, Mr. Praise Dike, for being out here today and taking us on the concept of today. I've learned the things I thought I knew that I didn't know. So I believe it's the same for everybody. Okay, so I want to thank him, and on behalf of the community, sir, we say a very big thank you, and we'll be connecting with you to ask you more questions. So please, you're ready for us. Okay, so for every one of us who joined us here today, I believe we've all learned a thing or two, although our network didn't allow some of us to stay till the end. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And of course, we'll be meeting from time to time as we usually do. The only reason we've not been able to meet all this while was because many of us have been handling projects. Okay, and also we have mini groups now where everybody is assigned to their particular group and they have a group head. So it is easier for you to reach out to your group head, and if you need any help, your group head will help you out on those kind of issues. So that's why we've not had a general meet. Okay, so the only meet we'll be having now as a general meet will be to maybe after we collate some of the issues we have in our mini groups, then we'll then come up here to answer the questions and see how we could solve some of the challenge to every other group. So that's the reason we've not had our meet for a very long time. And then from next week, everybody will be off the project they're handling, and then we could resume again to meeting. So for those who have not been paired and you still want to be paired, a link to that will be dropped soon, and then do well to fill up the form, and then you'll be paired to a particular group. And for those who have been paired, I believe we are all enjoying possibilities of it. Okay, because I've seen that most of us are catching up now. I've gotten feedback. So a big thank to our group heads too, who have been putting in the work to make sure that everybody are following up. So I want to thank everybody and our resource person, importantly, for being able to join us here today. So as I said, for someone who just joined, I'm going to drop a link to his profile after this meet. And then if you still have any questions you want to ask, you can reach out to him in person, either on Twitter or on LinkedIn, and connect with him personally, and you could relate to him beyond this session now. So to everybody, I thank you, and I hope to see us again another time. So before we end the meet, I want to give room to does anybody have a contribution or suggestions as to our meet today? Please, you can raise up your hand, and then you'll be given a chance to speak. Anybody? Okay, Bryce, please speak.
All right, thank you very much for bringing up this presentation, and thanks also to our guest speaker. As a suggestion, I would like to suggest, or maybe a suggestion for questions. When questions are asked, I would suggest that people ask questions themselves, so that when the questions are answered, that they can also respond to know if they're satisfied with the answer or not. Because one thing I observed was that just bring all the questions to Mr. David, and him giving it to the guest speaker. After the guest speaker responds, the people who ask those questions do not really get the chance to know or to give a feedback about the response. So I would suggest that when questions are asked, people should ask questions themselves. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, that's a very good observation and suggestion too. Okay, so the reason I was asking for them was that some of them were on transit. So some of them were outside in a noisy environment, so they were unable to ask the questions. Some of them were on their way home. So because of that, they sometimes want to drop the questions so that they wouldn't miss out. But they are joining us in the meet here. So that's basically the reason for that. But of course, as I said, I'm going to drop a link to our guest speaker's profile. So in case we did not understand whatever it is, we could always reach out to him and ask him the questions there. Okay. So does any other person have something to say? You could raise up your hand, and then I'll give you a chance to speak. Okay, we are all good. So I want to thank. Okay, Bright, you still have.
Yeah. Just one more thing to add. Yeah, just one more thing to add. The guest speakers having a joining a community with as in joining a community project or something like that too. I want to suggest that for us as a community, it's a conversation that we should start having. Like, what kind of community projects can we begin to work on? So that we can apply the things that we are learning in ALX to our community projects. So I just think it's a conversation that we can start having as a community. Thank you.
Okay. Of course, it is something. It's not even something we should start. It's something that we've started already. We discussed it in our last meet when the team heads were having a meet. So of course, it's something that we'll discuss after here. All right. So and then we'll give a feedback to the community at large. Okay, Bright.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Dixon, please, you have something to say.
Okay, sorry, please. There is a question in the chat box concerning a website where someone can learn data structure.
Okay, our resource person, I said something about that. So after now, I'll reach out to him, and then he will give me the link, and then I'll pass it on to us in the group. Is that okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So does any other person have anything to say, a suggestion or contribution, or a question if you may want to ask? Okay, everybody's good now. So before I end the meet, I want to. Okay, he has left us already. I wanted to tell him to say something to us since he's leaving the meet already. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today, and I believe we all enjoyed the meet. So I will get back to us on every other thing that I need to pass to us as an information. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming out, and till we meet again, please go on to learn. And of course, I want to thank our media person here who is always making sure we record our meet. Mr. Justice, thank you very much for being out here today. Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Okay, and also just another announcement. We've inaugurated We've brought up the outreach team that we've been discussing, that we are going to set up some other teams to help us in most of the things we are doing. So we've set up our outreach team. And of course, if you're interested in joining the outreach team too, you could also reach out to the person. He's going to make a speech afterwards to introduce himself. So you could reach out to him and say you want to join, or you want to ask questions about what an outreach team do. So in case you're interested to join, you could also do that. So meanwhile, we have some other teams that we are still setting up to make sure our community moves smoothly and we get the required help we need in times like this. So if you're interested in handling any of those responsibilities, you could always reach out to me and we'll discuss further and see how we could do things. So thank you everybody, and I appreciate you for coming. You can now unmute your mic and say good night to your friends. And good night everybody.
Good night, Mr. David.
Everyone. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay.
Good night.
Yes, I'm here. Good night.
Something on the chat.
Sorry, please.
Okay, in the chat.
If you can help me, say
Okay.
well done to one of my boss. He joined us. The message you sent on LinkedIn. So he saw it and he graced our meeting as well. He's present. I don't know if one of my big
Okay, are you
was when I
serious?
was
I
working.
didn't know. Introduce him to us, please.
But I think he has not now.
Oh no, you should have told me earlier now.
I just wanted to see if you could just say thank you to him, because he's one of my team leads, handles Calabar and the Oka and the Oka.
Oh no, you should have told me earlier. I would have recognized him, of course. So okay, please. After now, I will still want to reach out to him if you don't mind.
No problem.
I got the question on the chat.
Okay, please. Okay.
I got the question.
Okay. I'm checking the questions. Okay, I'm reading through the questions now. Someone said, thank you, Justice. Bright, thank you. Okay, what is an outreach team? Okay, an outreach team. Okay, please. Okay, an outreach team is basically a team that has been put together to so that for, let's say, new members and old members, they will be able to reach out to those ones in case we've not seen them active for a while. We could reach out to them and know how they are doing. And also for our resource person that will be coming in, the outreach team will be responsible to also reach out to them from time to time to keep our relationship going, and also look for new possibilities of us bringing in some other person to speak to us like we usually do. So the outreach team will be the one to take up that responsibilities, and other responsibilities are related to them. The the person who is in charge of it will be the one to really tell more about it. So when he introduces himself, maybe later on, and you may reach out to him and ask more questions about it. Okay.
Thank you very much. How about the link? How about the link that you share?
Every other thing will be dropped in the group, so we could always access it there. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.